Overwatch 2 6v6 or 5v5 debate is actually here. We actually got a blog post from kind of the main guy in charge, Aaron, on the Overwatch website, talking about 5v5, like the entire story, like why they went to 5v5, if 6v6 will ever be coming back and their plans going forward with 6v6 and that type of thing. Kind of just stirring the pot for like the 5v5, 6v6 debate, if I'm being real, because we got like some answers here, but I feel like a lot of this is like excuses, and like a lot of shit doesn't really make much sense at all, especially for like a lot of the 5v5 philosophy that he tried to give us. So I'm not going to be reading this entire blog post. If you guys want to read this blog post, it's actually on the Overwatch Blizzard website. You guys can go read it over there. There's like 10 pages worth of stuff here. If I had to be reading this on video for you guys, I would be sitting here just reading for like almost an hour. Like there's that much stuff here. So I'm gonna kind of be summarizing some of the more important stuff, kind of talking about that, and then more like the major stuff like 6v6 and going forward, like the future. So if you guys like this video, leave a like, subscribe to the video. Not gonna be too much on screen. I'll probably throw some gameplay in the background, along with like kind of what I'm reading a little bit. I think maybe I'll throw that on screen for you guys, but I'm not gonna be reading like a lot of this stuff like entirely, so I don't know if it really pays throwing that on screen for you guys. Let me know in the comments down below as well. Are you guys for 5v5 or 6v6? Or if you're somebody that's only been playing Overwatch 2, and if you guys would like to go to 6v6 if you've never played it and you'd be open to that or whatever, that type of stuff. What do you guys think? I think we should have went back to 6v6 for Season 12. Just a spoiler, as of right now, we are not going to be getting the entire game reverted back to 6v6 for Season 12, which I thought was something they had in store for us, especially with how garbage this Season 11 was. Probably one of the worst seasons, if not the worst season of Overwatch 2 ever. I thought we were going to be going back to 6v6 like for Season 12, but I guess that's not happening. So a little bit of a spoiler there. That's a huge L going into Season 12 already when we're not even there yet. We have like almost a month left, so apart from that, I'm going to hop right into this. I'm going to kind of just talk about like why they switched to 5v5. I'm not going to really talk about much else. There's like an entire backstory of like why they originally switched to 5v5 and like their main problems with 6v6, like the history of it and everything. You guys want to check it out? It's all on their website. If I don't explain whatever is on there in the video, there's a bunch of other stuff that I might not cover. But the main reason why they wanted to go to 5v5, at least right here, is they wanted a greater emphasis on FPS play. There's less damage mitigation CC, and players get to shoot at enemies more, which I don't know how that's actually the main reason, because you're taking one of the characters out of the format. How is there more gunplay and more shooting and FPS feel when you're taking one of the tanks away? I have no idea how that actually makes any sense. And like the mitigation and CC, well, that makes sense anyway, as you're going to be dealing with that in the type of games. Any FPS game's going to have that type of stuff. Like, they're using that as a reason as well. Like, come on now. Like, I really don't know how that makes sense. They're taking away a tank, but they want to have the game based around being able to shoot at the enemies more. Okay, sure. Really half-assed reason on why they wanted to originally switch to 5v5. That's already kind of an L there, being real with you guys. They have a little bit of, like, something here, like, talking about the DPS. Like, they didn't have that. They weren't super impactful or whatever. More excuses, because I think DPS felt like probably the really solid, or like probably the best role out of the 6v6, at least when I played it. It was probably the most consistent role. I don't know why they're saying this here at all. Supports, heroes had to focus on exclusively on healing because there are bigger health pools and more incoming damage on the field with an additional tank player. In 5v5, they had more agency to add some damage or duel other heroes. So they're complaining because supports actually had to do their main job, and the main reason why you even have a support to begin with, which is actually heal your team. Is that really what they're getting down to, and one of the reasons why they switched to 5v5? So they're sticking up for the support players that pick support and don't want to actually heal their team. They just want to run around and shoot sleep darts at the enemy team the entire game. That's what they really want to back up. Is that really one of their reasons? Come on. I feel like a lot of the reasons why they went to 5v5 overall, like, a lot of these reasons just don't make sense, or they're, like, really half-assed reasons for, like, switching an entire format for pretty much almost no reason now, it seems. And, like, another reason here they have is tank synergy wasn't always fun. It slowed down the game, stabilized it, but sometimes made it absolutely ground to a halt. I mean, that was mainly a problem with balance as well, and there also wasn't even, like, we have, like, what, 3 new tanks in the game currently since Overwatch 2 dropped. A lot of the tanks that actually dropped with Overwatch 2 would really help with that at this point as well. Back in the regular Overwatch 1, we never had Junker Queen, Ramatch, or Amalga. A lot of those tanks, I don't know about Amalga if that would actually really change much, but at least, like, Junker Queen and Ramatch, I think would be really good in 6v6, and they would actually kind of help with that as well. I don't know, at least for me, maybe at your higher tiers of play, that's maybe was a problem, but like in your lower to mid tiers or like your average tiers of play in Overwatch 1, with 6v6, that was never really the case with tank at all, so I'm assuming that's more of a higher tier problem that they're stating. I don't know, I never had that problem in Overwatch 1, where like the game would grind down to a halt because the tank synergy wasn't good. I don't know, there was also a lot more tank carry potential in Overwatch 1 too, because you were able to bounce off the other tank, and you weren't just like having to solo carry your team on your back. As long as you were able to at least do your job and do really well, having one tank that at least did something and the other tank just being there trying to do something, you'd be able to carry the game by yourself a lot easier. Because it wasn't fully reliant on you, at least have somebody else to bounce off of. That's kind of another thing. Even if they weren't the best player ever, like at least they were still there providing like value for you. I don't know. Got another thing, queue time and data. Here we go with the fucking queue time again. I don't know how many times they bring up queue time for 6v6 and why that's one of the main reasons why they went to 5v5. I don't know why queue time would be an issue when they're over here bragging like the game has like the highest players of all time or whatever. Like was like 100 million players or whatever it was that downloaded Overwatch 2 now. Like why are you complaining about queue time when we have that many players supposedly playing the game? Unless that's false, unless that was way over bloated and it's not real at all, or it's completely false. It's one of those two. Because otherwise I would not even worry about queue time. I don't know why that's even a thing. And even the queue times weren't even that bad, at least from what I remember in Overwatch 1, when we did have 6v6. Like your typical average game was maybe like 30 seconds to a minute queue time. Maybe in your really high tiers of play, that's where the queue times really struggle, but like that's for your minority of players. Like that's your 5% and less of the player base, which you shouldn't really even give a shit about anyways. Let alone balance the game around, that's an entire different video though. Like for the majority of your players, the queue times were still like really fast. Usually less than like a minute most of the time, at least from what I remember. I don't know. They have this entire chart here with like a bunch of stuff on it. If you guys want to check this more in depth, you guys can look at it at the blog. I'm not going to go through it because we'll be sitting here forever. But overall, that's one of their reasons why. They have some thoughts on 6v6. I'm not going to really talk about this much as well either. If you guys want to read it, it's on the Overwatch website. Here's where I'm going to read those. It's the what's next section. Is kind of the overall like summary of what's kind of going to be going on and going into the future. Because the changes that were mentioned previously on focusing on 5v5 to make the best experience it can be. However, we operate as a service to our players and we remain open-minded to give you the best game experience can be, rather than introduce a disruptive, permanent change to the game. They act like 6v6 can be such a bad thing, but the 6v6, I don't know if they realize, like, I don't know how long Aaron Keller's been with Blizzard, especially a lot of the other clowns that are balancing the game or in charge of the game. I'm assuming none of them have really been with the game longer than Overwatch 2's creation. But if they were with the game with Overwatch 1, the 6v6 has been around longer than Overwatch 2 has been around as like a game entirely. It's been around longer than two years. They act like 6v6 is such a bad thing for the game, calling it disruptive, permanent change of the game. Come on. If anything, I think 6v6 would actually fix a lot of the problems balance-wise just by reverting to it like currently right now as the game speaks, like as the game is currently, like right now in Season 11. If you would have flipped a switch into 6v6 right now, I think a lot of the balance changes that we currently have, especially with a lot of the tanks and stuff, I think would actually be fixed by themselves. There would be some stuff, like there'd be certain heroes and stuff you need to maybe buff or change, but overall it would be a lot better than it currently is. We prefer to explore the space further and make changes based on an explanation. With that said, we're looking at running a series of events to try out core team compositions, formats in Overwatch 2. The community has just once or twice suggested a test. Why not put that put previous forms of 6v6 into the game to gauge the results. We agree, and based off your feedback, we're exploring how we can test different forms of 6v6 in the game to gauge the results. This is taking some time, however, and for reasons it may not be readily apparent. So I was on the intel of like them actually probably putting the like 6v6 into the game at like season 12 or season 12. Especially with like the shitty balance changes they kind of made for mid-season 11, it kind of felt like a Hail Mary, just throwing out random balance changes like a last resort. That's kind of what it really felt like, especially for the tanks. I thought we were like going to be going to 6v6 because that's like the only reason to justify like such awful balance, and that's not even the case. So the balance change is just that stupid and should be probably fired. So that's an entirely different video too. I don't know. Overall, we're going to be getting 6v6 back going forward. It is confirmed, y'all. 6v6 will be coming back in later seasons. Not for until probably at least season 13, though, is at least what they say here. And so season 12, we're going to be getting nothing. Season 13 at the earliest, we'll be getting something with 6v6 being implemented back into the game for like some type of test. You know, I don't know about them, but I feel like they're just wasting their time, like putting the 6v6 into the game to just try to test it. Why don't they just add it into the game now as is, but instead of adding it as like a main queue, why don't they put it in like the arcade section of the game as like a 6v6 format? Like, why don't they just keep both? Why don't you just keep, at least for the time being, like you don't have to change it entirely, like the entire game just being one mode, like 5v5 or 6v6. Why don't they just make quick play, like have an option for quick play to be either 5v5 or have its own separate queue for 6v6? I just don't understand. Why do they need to have playtests, and why do they need to like stretch it out over all this period of time to before they actually put it into the game? You've had 6v6 in the game for longer than Overwatch 2 has existed. You have more insight on how to balance 6v6 and make 6v6 work than you have time actually even balancing Overwatch 2. Only like change to that at all was adding like a few different heroes. Soldier and Junker, Queen, Kiriko, like there's a few other, there's like what, 5, 6, 7, 8 heroes that are new to the game that weren't in Overwatch 1. That's like legit the only thing that changed at all. And maybe a few like minor hero reworks which could be easily solved with like either reverting back to their past kits or simple balance changes, like at least for any simple person that actually had a brain. I'm kind of putting that past the devs though, because the people that are balanced in this game are a bunch of clowns that have no brain, so that would be kind of a problem for them. But for the average person that actually played the game and actually knew how to balance the game, that wouldn't be a problem. First and largely, most of the reason is to do with allow the game to have optimized technical performance. I mean, they use this as an excuse, like the game, like going back to 6v6 will have like a major impact on the game performance-wise. But like legit, every single platform that had 6v6 on it originally with Overwatch 1 originally played it. So I don't know what the big deal is performance-wise would be at all. Like I guess what if they updated the graphics or whatever maybe, but like the graphics are pretty much the same, at least on the Switch. I really don't notice much difference at all. At least on the Switch, I think it would actually run like the exact same on the Switch because 6v6 was already on the Switch back in the day. And that's what it was originally introduced, even on the Switch with Overwatch 1 with. So I don't know why they're making a big deal out of this too. Like going back to 6v6 would cause a bunch of technical performance problems and that type of thing. Like hero kits have been more demanding, visual upgrades, blah blah blah. Like the main game was based off of 6v6, so like overall the game should already be ready for 6v6. If anything, like there should be maybe like a few small changes, but like I don't know. I'm not somebody that really deals with like the server room type changes to the game, like that sits on like the game and like makes it run and like the server type stuff. Maybe they know more than that than I do, but just going based off of what we already had, it shouldn't be that difficult apart from adding a few different heroes to the game that weren't in Overwatch 1. I really don't understand. Another issue that still gives me anxiety about opening this Pandora's box is what to do with the queue times if there is not enough players that prefer 6v6 to keep some form of it around. So they're scared about the queue times. You want to know how you eliminate the queue times? You want to know about that? If you don't put it into the game alongside 5v5, if you really want to put it into the game and that's not what you're planning on doing, getting rid of 5v5 queue entirely and just putting the game in as 6v6 and forcing people to play it. You're not going to have any problems with queue times if you force people to play 6v6. There you go. Fixed your issue for you in less than 10 seconds. Don't know why are they so scared of queue times when originally even to like in Overwatch 1 queue times were not that bad either. I think the only time queue times were really bad in Overwatch 1 is actually like your really high tiers of play. Which is, like I said, it's like the legit like the 5% or below of players. So if you're going to be basing it off of the 5% of the player base, you got some shit backwards. I don't know. At the same time, though, they're also basing balance off of the high tier players most of the time. So that's probably one thing they're keeping in consideration for whatever reason. The outcome of the test will give a lot of valuable information to consider moving forward. We'd like to run the test for a few weeks and gauge interest for the community. Then we'd be able to measure the impact it had on our experiences, like 5v5, arcade, etc.
That was interesting.
We take the lessons from this playtest to see what we can learn about the mode and current game ecosystem, and for the future of Overwatch. We would reflect carefully on learnings for whatever test we'd like to run, explore, and give players the best of what's being asked for. Whether it's 5v5 or 6v6, it's a future for us to figure out. So the main thing here is they're open to bringing back 6v6, but it's going to be a struggle to get it back into the game. That's kind of what I'm really getting at here, and what I'm getting from this blog post. The main thing this blog post really says is, yeah, we fucked up with 5v5. We should have never ever made the game 5v5, and we should have kept it 6v6. Apart from the PvE being an absolute disaster, the number 2 main problem with Overwatch 2 and going to Overwatch 2 was the format change. They should have never made it 5v5. We fucked up, and we don't want to admit that we actually failed, so we're going to make you guys jump through hoops, and we're going to do all this random testing and make all these excuses to try to bring back 6v6, because we don't want to admit that we actually failed, and we don't want to actually have to revert the game back to Overwatch 1, pretty much. Because otherwise, Overwatch 2 will mean nothing. Because the main thing that Overwatch 2 was even created for anyways, and why it even has a 2 beside it, is because of the PvE. And the other main thing was the format change. The PvE is dead. The only reason to even have like a 2 beside Overwatch anyways right now is the main thing is because of the format change. That's the main difference from Overwatch 1. If they get rid of the 5v5, then like what the fuck is the reason why it's called Overwatch 2? They better off just revert the game back to regular Overwatch. I think that's another major problem too. They do not want to have to rebrand the game back to Overwatch, because the main thing that's making it different from Overwatch 1, they could say that it's a major difference, an upgrade, is 5v5 instead of 6v6, which they don't say here either. So, and at least that's what I'm getting from this blog. A lot of stuff that doesn't make sense here, and a lot of stuff that I think that they're kind of using as like excuses. I really do, and they're kind of painting 6v6 in kind of a bad light overall. They're kind of not, they say they're open to ideas, but at least from this blog, like, it seems they're really biased towards 5v5, just because it's already in the game, I think, and they don't want to change it at all, if they don't have to. At the same time, they have so many people bitching, complaining to bring back 6v6 to the point where they can't be silent on it, because otherwise they're going to lose money and they're going to lose players, so, I don't know. There's a few other things here if you guys want to read. You guys read a lot of this on your own time. They want your feedback has driven us to inspirations and commitment to testing new game ideas. We want to be super thoughtful and implement new ideas into the live game where there are millions of players to jump in, and we want anything to be put into the game to the benefit of the community as a whole. Ultimately, the Overwatch team is continuing to build in the game that wants you to play after season. Sure. If that was the actual case, you could actually balance the game. You would fire Aaron Keller and you would fire Alex Dawson and give us a brand new balanced team. This is the most bullshit line right here out of the entire fucking blog. The Overwatch team wants to continue building the game that you want to play season after season. Well, for sure, the balance for the game has been the worst it's ever been. If you really want to give us a game to actually be able to play and want us to actually play, main thing to do is get us a new balance team. Because the 2 people that are in charge of balancing the game right now are absolute fucking failures at their job. If I can balance the game for free and not even get paid to do their job and balance the game better than them, and they're getting paid and have like a huge position at Overwatch where they're in charge of all this shit, like there's a major problem here. Like, I don't know. Whatever. Apart from that, let me know what you think in the comments down below. There's not too much here. I mean, I could sit here and read all day if I really wanted to. There's a bunch of shit I never read, but overall, 6v6 planning to come back at the very earliest in Season 13. They're going to have some type of play test, testing out some of the past 6v6 formats, and possibly way down the line, probably not until like Season 20, if we do ever get to that point, they'll probably have maybe a possible 6v6 return if it goes well. I mean, that's at least what I'm kind of getting from this, but the chances are really slim. Overall, if you're somebody like me that wants 6v6 to return, the chances of 6v6 coming back, especially after this blog post, are really slim, and the chances are almost relative to none. So, don't expect 6v6 to come back in like an entirety. They'll probably appease us by giving like some playtests for 6v6, but I highly ever doubt that 6v6 will ever come back in any way as like a main game mode for the game, replacing 5v5. Because if they do that, then they're kind of admitting failure, and they're admitting why Overwatch should even exist anyways, when that could have been Overwatch 1 at this point, if that ever happens. So, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Leave a like, subscribe to the video. If you guys want to read the rest of this blog, it's on the Blizzard Overwatch website. Go check it out. There's a bunch more stuff I never went over, but like I said, a lot of it you can kind of skim over. You don't really need to read the entire thing, because a lot of it's kind of a waste of time to read anyways. It's kind of a lot of excuses or like jumping around the topic, a lot of it. So, I don't know. Apart from that, hope you guys enjoyed. I got a bunch more stuff on the way you guys don't want to miss. We got a new Overwatch season on August 20th, and we got a new Apex Legends season here in about a week and a half. So, if that interests you guys, subscribe. I'll be covering both of those. Apart from that, I'm out of here. Peace out, everybody.